I have been begging Chuck Baker to let me come and address this group, world renowned. And finally, he said it was the last meeting of his year as president, so they couldn't kick him out after this. So it got me to come in, and we were talking about supply chain management from a Waffle House perspective, and looking at how the Federal Emergency Management Agency came to have a Waffle House index for dealing with disaster management. I hope you enjoy the video. So I've got an agenda. I was given what? At least 10 hours to prepare this. So I'm excited. I appreciate Chuck inviting me. I'm going to talk about Waffle House, specifically the Waffle House Index as formulated by the Federal Emergency Management Agency, and talk about supply chain management within that. So I've got an agenda. Don't worry, I'm going to move so that the people that are sitting in the seats, usually those are given free. The obstructed view. I used to get that at Old Tiger Stadium. Is there anything specific that anybody wants to know about Waffle House? Because I know everything. I am the foremost expert on Waffle House in this room. Anything in particular?
The amount of profit.
Oh, good. Well, great. So I can talk about whatever in the hell I want to. This is good. Okay, well, terrific. So, again, Chuck was very complimentary. So it's kind of interesting how I ended up at Waffle House. I was recruited by Roger Milliken. And how that came about is I'm driving down the road and I get a phone call from the great Randy Anderson, who played football at Clemson back in the early 80s after they won the national championship. So Randy came on, and Randy, as he used to say, owned all of the passing records when we ran the ball 50 times a game. So Randy was at that time an area people director with Waffle House. He calls me up and says, "Hey, Bill May," so he got my name wrong right off the bat. He says, somebody gave me your name, and so it was a strong referral. And he said, "Have you ever thought about a career in management at Waffle House?" And I said, "Randy, I really haven't. And to be blunt, I went to Wofford so I didn't have to work at some place like Waffle House." But I appreciate you calling me. So I was driving to a dinner that was being given in Roger Milliken's honor, because Roger Milliken, before the Gibbs and before the Panther dynasty, had built every building at Wofford. So we were coming down to the last building that we could name after him. And we were having a dinner. My dad was the director of dining services there. And I went up to my dad, and you know how your dad is. Dad asked, how did everything go today, that sort of thing. And I said, "Well, I got this funny call from Waffle House." And he says, "Well, are you going to take the interview?" And I said, "No, I really don't think that I am." And Mr. Milliken was sitting right there. And it's the only words he's ever said to me. And well, he's dead now, but he had never said anything to me before. But he looked up at me and he said, "Waffle House, that's a good company. You really ought to look at them." So I was thinking about it. I was like, he has $1 billion. And I only have a few of those zeros in my bank account. So I took the interview, and kind of the rest was history, because Waffle House is one of these organizations that if you're on the outside, sometimes the only thing you see is sometimes through gin and tonic glazed eyes at 2:30 in the morning. And those guys that run Waffle House are geniuses. The most unbelievable people that you're ever going to meet and understand. And that's the first thing that I saw coming out of my interview. So I spent 10 years at Waffle House. before I was recruited away to be a financial advisor, which all my Waffle House career led me to that. So I work at Northwestern Mutual for the last 3 years, and I would say about a third of my clients are Waffle House managers. So it's kind of interesting helping them out. So Chuck had asked me to speak about specifically about the Waffle House Index. Has anybody heard of the Waffle House Index? Raise your hand. Okay. Anybody that raised their hand, what is the Waffle House Index?
How many Waffle Houses are open during a natural disaster?
Yeah, so how it came about. Now, if you go on Wikipedia or Snopes, which are the best sources of information that you can find out there, if it's not on Wikipedia, it actually hasn't happened. So it kind of came about bizarre how it came about. But it was the director of the Federal Emergency Management Agency was giving an interview, and he was down in New Orleans. So the first hurricane in the last few years that has hit New Orleans. And of course it was devastation. And he said there were 3 levels that they were looking at. And actually Waffle House was not the only one, but it's the one that got picked up. They were also looking at several other companies, 3 others in fact, Lowe's, Home Depot, and Walmart, as especially good at responding to disasters and keeping their stores open. But the Waffle House, and my own personal theory is because the story got picked up by Stephen Colbert and ended up on the Colbert Report. And if you put in Stephen Colbert and Waffle House, you will get one of the funniest bits of 3.5 minutes. And almost everything that he says is wrong. I think he refers to how many flapjacks that we make. One of the things that you'll know about Waffle House doesn't make pancakes, only makes waffles. Thus the name, Stephen. But, that's where it is. So it came up, so he said there's 3 levels. Green is it's pretty safe to be up and around because your Waffle House is open and it is serving a full menu. Yellow is your Waffle House is open, but it's serving a limited menu. And the reasons it might be serving a limited menu is on purpose, and this is where these guys are geniuses, half of the places run on gas and half of the places run on electricity. So that if the gas goes out, you can still run off of electricity, and if the electricity goes off, you can still run off of gas. And if both of them go out, we have Waffle, I still call it, once you're part of Waffle House, you're part of the cult, right? Waffle House has their own generators. So when I say their own generators, I'm talking about like 100 of them that they are ready to pull into any organization, into any place that is a disaster. So the second one is they're open on a limited menu. And the third one is if a Waffle House in your area is closed, that's red. That's evacuate. You need to leave now. And let me assure you right now that if a Waffle House is closed in your area, canaries are dying and you need to leave. Essential services are not there. One of the greatest stories was when we had the hurricane down in Charleston. Was that Katrina? I always get them all mixed up. Hugo. We had Hugo down there, so the Waffle House that's on Montague Avenue, so not even in Charleston. So they had put a curfew on Charleston that said everything was closed. Joe Rogers Jr., who's the CEO of the company, son of the founder, was down there, and he was cooking third shift at Montague Avenue. And National Guard troops came up. This is like 1 o'clock in the morning, and told him he had to shut down. And he says, no, we're going to stay open so that we can service the area. And he says, no, nobody's out and about, only the National Guard is out. And he says, well, y'all have to eat someplace. Y'all come on over here, and we'll fix y'all something to eat. And then the National Guard pulled his .45 automatic and said, you're going to close this place. And Joe said, okay. So That's the genesis of, there is actually not a Waffle House index. I think I'm burying the lead here. There is actually not a Waffle House index used by FEMA, because one of the things that you'd have to first notice is they just had a huge hurricane in the last 2 years up in New York and New Jersey, and Waffle House is not only not in New Jersey and New York, but it has active plans not to go there. So the Waffle House Index does not work for any place but basically the southeastern United States. So if you want to know where Waffle House is, if it fought on the side of the Confederacy, Waffle House is there. All right. There are some rare examples to that. As you can find out, that LeBron James's favorite restaurant is in fact Waffle House. There is in Akron, Ohio, there are 2 Waffle Houses. So we're actually in Ohio, and Joe Rogers III, the grandson of the founder, is a senior vice president, and he's based in over Midwest Waffle. So he has Ohio, Kentucky, mainly the Louisville and Lexington area, but they're expanding, and then into northern Tennessee. So he always says that he is in charge of deliverance territory. But what inspired this? Well, it is, I think, 2 things when you start to look at Waffle House from a supply chain standpoint. There is, and I used to recruit people who, I was talking earlier, where are you? Oh, daggum, I lost her. I was talking, oh, yeah, there you are. We were talking earlier. My job as the area people director was to mainly recruit college graduates from Clemson and Furman and Wofford were mainly my 3 feeder schools. So I went and recruited people that were like myself, that went to college so that they didn't have to work at someplace like Waffle House, and to talk them in to coming and and I did not have exactly the presence of Roger Milliken. So I had to get better at speaking. That's the Toastmasters thing. Okay, so when I was recruiting people, one of the things that we always talked about was that there was the good and the bad of Waffle House. So we talked about all the wonderful things. Like 23-year-old, the starting salary at Waffle House is around $55,000. That was kind of interesting. We were talking about Chick-fil-A with Max earlier. Whenever I would ask the students, we did a survey of all the Clemson students and said, what was the average starting salary for a manager at Chick-fil-A? And they said $55,000. And then we asked them what was the average starting salary for a manager at Waffle House, and they said $25,000. And in fact, it's exactly the opposite. So it is kind of interesting when you go into a Waffle House. It's a little bit different atmosphere than when you walk into Chick-fil-A. The Chick-fil-A is definitely hiring the sweet young things. I mean, sometimes I think that the average age is 17 and the average hair color is blonde. Have you ever noticed that? So, and then you have Waffle House. A joke that was famous 20 years ago that is not as applicable today is what has 6 legs, 3 teeth, and 3 teeth? Third shift at Waffle House. So that is a caricature, but we definitely have some people that have led a rougher life work for us at Waffle House, and it comes out of the 24-hour management. So why this Waffle House Index? What drove this? Well, I think that there are 2 things that drive it. The first is a commitment to a homegrown culture. So I said there was the good and the bad, and Pat Warner, who is Waffle House's Vice President for Culture. That's the greatest title ever. It actually makes him sound like a communist commissar. But every time that you see a press release put out, it's by Pat. And they spend endless hours talking about how to strengthen the culture. And Pat says there's not the good and the bad of Waffle House. There is the good and the culture. And the very cornerstone of that culture is a homegrown culture. They have great, I have clients of mine now that I do financial planning that are senior vice presidents at Waffle House. These are people that are making on average about $275,000 a year and have net worths north of $1.5 million, who have done nothing but since they were 23 years old work at Waffle House. And in fact, I've got one of my clients has never had another job. He started out as a grill operator when he was 16 years old 30 years ago. So down in Macon, Georgia, if anybody moves down there, Terry Lavecchi, I'll introduce you to him, great guy. So you cannot come into Waffle House and be a senior vice president or executive vice president or the president of the company. And this is exemplified, we've talked about Joe Rogers III. He is the son of the current chairman and the grandson of the founder of Waffle House. And he graduated from the Terry School of Business at Georgia, the University of Georgia, about 10 years ago. And he started off as a manager trainee, working in the Atlanta area market, living in his mother's basement, making $35,000 at that time. So he was being paid hourly. And we always knew that we felt like that Joe III was going to have a good career at Waffle House. But he started off as a manager trainee like everybody, spent 6 months there. He was a unit manager. His dad sent him down to Florida, to Jacksonville. So he is living in there with 2 other managers, making about $47,000 at that time. He spent a year as a unit manager, then he was promoted to a district manager. He spent all of 3 months as a district manager. He was moving pretty quick. Then he became a division manager, and he was a division manager for a year and a half. Then he moved back up to Asheville and became the area vice president, and then he moved to Ohio, and he is currently a senior vice president. His next step is a step on the board. But that has been an 8-year evolution. He did not start off as a senior vice president. And I've always remembered Joe was talking about what would happen. And it was in a meeting like this, he was talking to all the division managers because he's 67 years old. And he says, what's going to happen when I am no longer actively involved in the company? And he says, I know all of you are thinking that Joe III is going to step in. And Joe III was sitting right there. And he looked at him and he said, I would assess that chance at about 1 in 20. Because you don't just turn over a $1.4 billion operation to a 28-year-old with an undergraduate degree from Georgia, of all places. So that was kind of an interesting little statement. So that homegrown culture. And why is that homegrown culture so important? Because there will never be a time where you're at Waffle House where you will report to anybody that hasn't done your job and done it better than you're doing it right now. And because of that, whenever something goes wrong, and what we're talking about is natural disasters, what we see here in the upstate is when the first flakes of snow fall and everything goes crazy. So our business at Waffle House triples, and the number of employees that can make it to work tumbles to about 1/10. I'm always fascinated that our customers can make it to Waffle House, but our employees can't. So you will see this happen. And interestingly enough, one of the last management meetings I went to where we were having that discussion about Joe Jr. is we are in a room about twice as big as this, and it's all the Atlanta and the upstate managers, division managers up. So these are people that are not in the restaurants every day. And we called it the snowpocalypse. So snow started falling, and if you think it's bad in Clemson, South Carolina when the snow falls, you just haven't seen anything until you've seen Metro Atlanta. So we're all inside the Beltway. Cool little fact, there are 2,100 restaurants in Waffle House. 300 of them are in Metro Atlanta. So we're there, all of us, up to and including the chairman of the board. They canceled the management meeting because they can see what's coming. They cancel the meeting and they extend the reservations that we all had for overnight for 3 more days. And in the morning, we are all picked up average income of the people in that room was $215,000 a year. And we are all picked up and driven to a Waffle House where we are going to work for the next 14 hours. So I get driven to Georgia Tech. Now, we are founded, Joe Jr. is a Georgia Tech graduate. He has an industrial engineering degree from Georgia Tech. And one of the highlights was opening up, that was the first campus that we opened a Waffle House on. So we are right there in the middle of campus. If you remember anything about when you went to college, right? The college doesn't close down. You got dorms there. Then people got to eat someplace. And given a choice between eating at the cafeteria or coming over to the Waffle House, where they can use, where do they come? So they come over to the Waffle House. So a good waffle, I mean a good day. This is a good day at a Waffle. I mean, just astronomical is you do about $3,000 in business. That is slamming. In the 24 hours at that Waffle House, we did $27,000 in business. And I am sitting there, I was the expediter. So, and the expediter just means that have you ever, when you're in a Waffle House, they don't have any POS systems, they call out the orders? You ever hear that? Pull one bacon, drop one hash brown, mark, double order a hash brown, scattered smothered, covered, side of bacon, out with a waffle. Okay, that's great. I can still, so I was in particularly high volume, you will give, they won't call their own orders, the waitresses, they'll give it to the expediter. So I'm sitting there with a stack of tickets like this high, and I am calling the orders. I have 3 cooks. The first cook is Joe Rogers Jr., the chairman of the board. And I had seen his stock statement. He owned $475 million in stock in Waffle House. Next to him was Dave Rickle, my boss's 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 boss, who's one of the 6 executive vice presidents of the company. He last year made something close to $500,000. And the third cook was relatively low rent. This was the senior vice president for the area. He only made $275,000. So, and as I reminded them later, I told them that we would probably have less of a worker situation if we paid our grill operators all $500,000 a year. We'd get more applicants and higher quality. That joke didn't go over very well with them. So that's them. Now, all of the salespeople have called in, right? So we're living in downtown Atlanta. They're saying they can't get to work. None of our employees have cars. So it's BS. They all live within a mile. Oh, well, no, the associates. No. We have never gotten a Georgia Tech kid to work at Waffle House. Never. It's crazy. That's a whole nother story. Okay. So the beacon across the street is closed. We're open. Everybody's there. The 5 people that are waiting tables, which is not enough, but there's 5 of them, are all area people directors like myself. Now, let me assure you that recruiters are not normally, I had an operations background. I was probably the only one. They had never waited tables in their life. They went through 2 days of training like 5 years ago. So they don't know how to write a ticket. They don't know what things cost. I mean, if you've ever wondered how these really good associates do things, it's awesome to behold. But these guys, right? I've got an offensive tackle from Newberry. I've got a basketball player that played at Wofford. I mean, they've never waited tables in their life, and so they're over there. And so they got an ingenious system. Have you ever seen the old Saturday Night Live skit? Cheeseburger, 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 cheeseburger. I want a hot dog. No, cheeseburger, cheeseburger, cheeseburger. Okay. Well, they didn't go quite that far, but they didn't know the prices, and this was slowing down things because you're not supposed to give me the ticket until it's priced because it goes down with them. So their solution to the problem was everything, including a drink, was $9. Everything. I just want a waffle. Well, you get a drink with that. I just want water. That's okay, it's $9. So then they started, it had to be multiples of 9. So if it was not something that was $9, then they'd start negotiating. Would you take that for $4.50? That includes tax. So this is great. So we get an order from MARTA. MARTA. So MARTA's still up because they have to be able to, which is another thing. MARTA's still up, but our associates can't get to work. You know, these things are going through my mind, right? So MARTA puts in an order, and the one associate we have takes it. And the thing about Waffle, this is great. The associates are the greatest thing about it. But at least once a week, you're looking at an associate going, who the hell thought this was a good idea? So she hands me basically a book of tickets, has 50 tickets. She gives me half a book of tickets, has not even bothered to tear them apart individually because it's 25 orders. And have you ever heard how an order's called? You're supposed to group the ticket together. So I would have had pull 83 bacon, 42 T-bones. It was ridiculous. So we're getting through this. We've got it all. But MARTA comes in to pick up their order, which is for 112 different items. So they are sitting there, and it has backed up everything. I mean, we are not able to get anything out. And Joe Jr., you just love it when the chairman of the board turns around to you. And this is my boss's 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 boss. We have gone all the way from the bottom of the totem pole to the very top. Turns to me and says the words you always want to hear from the chairman of the board, fix this now. So I turned around from the MARTA guy. So all the salespeople, so we finally got some people that know what they're doing. All the salespeople are at the low counter. You know that little low place where the last people sit? Okay, so that's full. We're backed up out the door. They're sitting there and they're trying to match it up. Match it up, match it up, match it up, make sure, because everything, it's wrong. All of it's wrong. The guy from MARTA's there and it's going, okay, so Fred wanted double covered, double smothered, And I went up to him, I said, sir, if you'll take it now, as is, there's no charge. And he said, but we can't, this is not a negotiation, okay? If you take it now, we'll throw ketchup at you on the way out the door, and you can take this out. And he looks at me for like 5 seconds, he says, sold. So we're like that. I went to Joe and I said, I solved it. And then, so this is why I'm no longer at Waffle House. I got up on a chair and I announced to the entire filled restaurant, I was like, you see this right here? These are all your tickets. And it's not coming out soon, but it is. And it was the only time I've gotten a round of applause at a Waffle House. So I told them to stop taking the orders at on the phone. I said, if they want food, they got to come in. Because we're not doing this anymore. We're not taking 170 orders on the phone. And so we started calling them in. Now the orders are still all jacked up. We have no idea if people are leaving or not. And so we've got this food and nobody's picking it up. Have you ever heard of pick up? Pick up, order scrambled cheese on 4. And so I turned to the high counter and there's these 5 guys up here. And I said, I don't know where your food is. We got 6 plates right there. Y'all want them? I said, how much? $60. He said, sold. So this is how we do supply chain management at Waffle House. So the thing that comes out of that is the homegrown culture. You know, whatever it takes, it's not going to be perfect. And at Waffle House, we are not delivering penicillin. It's scrambled eggs. You can screw it up and start over. And so this is something to get, we were the only game in town. We got them basically what they wanted. We did the best we could with what we had right then, right now. But it all started out with a commitment, because if we did not have a homegrown culture, if we had hired division managers to come in and be administrators, they wouldn't be able to cook. But they've been cooking all their lives. So they can sit out there and they can sling some food. And they're really good. And you know, after an hour of not having rest, you get better. And it comes up. The second thing that I think that is important when you start thinking about the Waffle House Index and the Waffle House in general is the second pillar, homegrown culture. You have to be recruited, start off as a manager trainee if you want to move up in the world at Waffle House. And there's some very famous t-shirts out there that talk about, we are like the Marines of restaurants, right? The Marines, are there any Marines in the room? Any Marines? Marines have we have a Naval Academy graduate. The Marines have a motto, every Marine a rifleman. It does not matter what you do in the Marines. You can be driving a truck, you're going to have an M16 beside you. It is the same thing. Everybody at Waffle House is a cook. And they have shirts that are made up, if you can't cook, shut up. And they're not interested in your opinion. And the area people directors, we find this out when we go to meetings, they're always, oh, well, you know, we're really in the people business. We're not in the food business. And it's very nice. And the area people directors, y'all are so important. Y'all are the backbone of the company. And then we provide a suggestion, and they come over and they pat us on the head. It's so nice that you had a thought. Shut up. You don't know what you're talking about. It's great. The same way the Marines feel about contractors who are coming to tell them how to implement tactics. All right, so the second part of the culture is the 24/7, 365 culture. How many of you are originally from Greenville? Do you remember when Waffle House tried to open up the store on Stone Avenue? And all hell broke loose from the historical association behind. And they were like, you know, the only people that come to Waffle House to eat are AIDS infected, gun carrying, homeless people. And we're like, you know, we do have people that come there occasionally that have jobs. I mean, you know, that's certainly part of our clientele. But it's not it. And the way that they described it. And did you notice that it opened up 6 months after we announced? And why? Because we were not going to open that restaurant unless it was 24/7, 365. And they were saying, well, the lights are going to be on, it's going to whatever. And they said, great, we're not opening it, and we want our money back for our land that we opened. And it went into, and we brought out the law on this and won. And that restaurant is 24/7, 365, as is every Waffle House. It is a core understanding of our business. No matter what day that you are on, no matter where you are, if there is a Waffle House, it is open. You might go in there and find, as we did in Columbia about 6 months ago, that the staff has fallen asleep in the booths, and that you can go behind the counter, as this young man did, cook your own food and leave your money. And much to the chagrin of Waffle House corporate, take, of course, not a selfie, he videotaped the whole thing and posted it on Facebook, which is great. Then Pat, our director of culture, has to put out this, so it's this odd thing. So Pat always sounds so sophisticated. Certainly the highest value of Waffle House is the safety of our customers, and like this, and everybody else thinks it's great. The other one, if you ever want to see it, Waffle House is actually at the forefront of food safety. You have no idea how much money that they have put into this. From a supply chain, I mean, they are on top of our suppliers, and they go all the way back to the packers. And they are checking everything along the line, and they are in it. However, we have to deal with reality that when you talk to the public, food safety and cleanliness are not at the forefront of the customer's expectation at Waffle House. Or certainly, that's not the first thing you think of. Right? As my friend said, well, that's why I'm drunk when I get there, so that the alcohol will kill the bacteria by the time it gets to my stomach. So these conversations. So I'm unmiked now because I'm 3 years past Waffle House, so I can tell all these great stories. It's awesome. This one guy, the Georgia Department of Health and Environmental Control came out and they shut down a Waffle House for like a day because they gave it a C. So this guy's riding down I-285 and he's taking a video of himself that he posts on Facebook. And he's saying, "What? You think you're telling me something? That Waffle House not clean? I know it's not clean. That's why we go there. It's 2 o'clock in the morning." And it's a 2-minute rant, and it's funny, and Pat Warner hates it because this is the stuff that goes viral. The second is the 24/7, 365 culture. So if you start from there, so how did we end up with FEMA looking at us as a way of working at disaster management? Well, Waffle House starts off with a basic principle. We are going to be open 24/7, 365 until somebody with machine guns shuts us down. Now, if you saw the hurricanes on the Gulf Coast, the Waffle House was literally lifted in Biloxi, Mississippi, was literally lifted off of the concrete pad and deposited into the Gulf of Mexico. There is no Waffle House. That Waffle House was closed for 4 hours. They set up a tent. And they brought in, as they do, the number one thing that you have a problem with is potable water. So Waffle House has over 100 water trucks that are filled at any time. And they were staged in Illinois. They were all waiting for Illinois for the Mississippi National Guard to tell them that they could come into the area. Side by side with them is working with their suppliers, the main ones being U.S. Food Service at the time, U.S. Food Service. U.S. Food Service had 18 trucks filled waiting in Illinois until they were cleared to come back in. Now, all of those trucks were specifically what kind of trucks? Because what else are you running into? You have no power. They were refrigerated trucks. So they're running, they've thought all of this out. They've gone back, all of these things. And they go, what didn't work? What did work? How do we get to this? How do we get to this? And so every excuse for why we can't open is dealt with. And at Waffle House, it is never either or. It is both and. We're going to stay open and we're going to take care of our associates. So what are our associates? We need our associates at work. Well, we need to provide protection for them and their family. So we've got looters out there. So how do we do that? Well, one of the ways that you do that is you give breakfast to the National Guard and lunch and dinner to the National Guard, and all of a sudden everybody hanging around has M16s and ways to repel, and people aren't interested in attacking our associates. And the National Guard's so helpful that they will be more than happy to walk the associates back to the hotels that Waffle House, seeing a hurricane coming, has already reserved. Now, understandably, we start running out of hotel space. So what do you do then? Well, when 5 years ago, remember the tornadoes in Alabama? Okay, so I got on a plane, Waffle One, a King Air, that they were flying in and out every 12 hours out of Greenville, Spartanburg, to take grill operators and anybody else that would volunteer to go to Alabama to work 12-hour shifts. Then they would load them up in Huntsville and bring them back to Greenville, Spartanburg, because we're going to keep our associates safe and we're going to be open. So how do you make that happen? And money is not a concern. So you see all these great, Waffle House stays open because they can make money. They're losing money hand over fist. They just said, hey, for our customer base, we made a commitment, we made a promise to our clientele that we were going to be open, and we're going to be open. And that's why, does anybody here regularly go to Waffle House? Anybody? Do you have a particular Waffle House that you go to?
Closest to home.
The closest to home. So if you think about Waffle House, what it has done is recreated the local diner feel, but has made a chain out of it. And by the way, not a franchise chain, 90% of all Waffle House stores are corporate owned. In very few instances are Waffle House franchised. And right now the rule is you have to be a district manager with Waffle House for 3 years before you become a franchisee, because they want to maintain control of their culture. So I think that those are the two big things that lead to FEMA using Waffle House as a model for how to respond to disasters. So I have stories on Waffle House that would go well past the 10 o'clock range. Do any of you have any questions about Waffle? Yeah, go ahead.
Does each Waffle House order their supplies independently, or is there essentially located ordering to accomplish economies of scale?
Yeah, so that's interesting. So yes and yes, all at the same time. So we have so Waffle House has national contracts, but each and every store is its own P&L. So and the managers themselves are paid on the profitability of that store. And so from that standpoint, inventory management, inventory control, that is part of what they're paid off of. Now, one of the things that you'll notice about Waffle House, and we were talking about this with Chuck earlier, Waffle House is a difficult career. So all of these things that I've been talking about are great stories. At the time, you're going, I went to Wofford for this crap. And one of the things is you have a 30% turnover in the unit manager rank every year. Now, to my mind, I have a degree in history, but that sounds suspiciously like you're turning over your entire unit manager rank every 3 years. And it's not exactly that, but it's close. And so the analogy to the Marines is not that far off, right? So how many Marines re-up? I mean, my dad is a Marine, and my dad says basic training and his time in the Marines, he wouldn't trade it for anything, and he would never do it again. So, and you'll hear that statement a lot. One of the things you'll notice, so you have to put into place systems that are going to run regardless of who you have in there. So one of the things from a supply chain management standpoint, if you will notice, all Waffle Houses are basically the same size. There are some little differences. And one of the things that is talked about all the time is that you should never have more than 10 days of inventory in place. Well, your problem is if you got a slick unit manager like myself, because I was a lazy bum, I didn't like to put up the truck. So my district manager was going to be in there 2 days. So I would always order this unbelievably huge truck for Rodney, so he would pit it up. And then when I ordered it for myself, it would have like 4 pieces on it. And Rodney got hold of that idea, because then he started making my orders for me until I learned that that was not a good thing to do. But one of the things, we have limited freezer space. You couldn't possibly put more than 12 days of inventory in there, even if you wanted, because you just don't have enough room, because the commissary is so small. So they won't let you by design, order more than you're supposed to. Now, in theory, you should be, without a POS system, they do have a computer system that says everything that you're putting on the floor. And in theory, if the managers followed that guide, it would look at past usage and extrapolate with, hey, you're in a 12% sales increase, and we got a 15% overage. You should order this in. But the number of people that use that at the unit level, it comes dangerously close to precisely zero. In fact, I was the only one after Rodney got mad at me that started to do that, and the person that got mad at me for doing it then was Rodney, because he didn't do it like that either. He's like, no, you gotta keep it a little extra. Did that answer your question?
Yes, sir.
Oh, good. Anybody else? Yes, sir.
It seems like from the few times I've been there, it's a standard process that's followed. Like, somebody takes your order and then they go to a certain point on the floor and call in the order. How far down does that detail?
So the last time that I heard, so this goes back to the Joe Rogers Jr. graduating from Georgia Tech with an IE degree, with an industrial engineering degree. And he was part of a fraternity with a bunch of other IE degree people. So Waffle House is basically run, and has been run for 50 years now, by industrial engineering degree people from Georgia Tech. There is a system for everything. There is a system, in fact, you learn the 10 critical systems, and then that you learn inside the 10 critical systems are the, like 25 other systems that support the 10 critical systems. So the first critical system is the manager walkthrough. So manager comes, so first of all, manager gets to work at 6:30 in the morning, 30 minutes before shift change. So 6:30 in the morning, it's usually dark. So the first thing you're looking at is the lights. You want to make sure that every light is on. Number one, because you do not want on Facebook it to show up that the Waffle House is open. That's just too easy. Don't give them that. Okay? So, and you call that in immediately. We have, the soffit lights are down. There's two reasons for that. Is first of all, and most importantly, is customer safety. So, when you're 24/7, 365, you want to make sure that that place is lit up like a Christmas tree so you don't have people coming in there robbing us at 3 o'clock in the morning. And per capita, we get less robberies. You hear about them a lot, but than other 24-hour restaurants. So he walks around. I'm going to give an example of one thing. So he walks in. He's also checking outside. Every shift should sweep the butt line. So there's no smoking in any Waffle Houses anymore. That was an interesting transition in a lot of places, because some of our restaurants, everybody smoked. So we went from non-smoking to, we went from smoking required. So, and that was one of my great moments in management history, one of the things that I learned from Dave Rickle. So I got pissed off because every morning I'd walk in and there would be 150 butts outside. That's why they call it the butt line, right there at the curb, cleaned it up so it looks good, and it pissed me off. I wish I could find a better word for it, but that's what it did. It pissed me off that every night I was having to clean up the butt line when, first of all, my third shift grill operator should have done it, but he didn't do it. So I was going to have to do it. So I was going to ban all smoking on the property by employees. Well, we don't have management on 2 of our shifts. And Dave Rickle assured me that I should never make a rule that I have no hope of enforcing. Because not only does it make me look impotent, but it makes me actually impotent, which is bad. So we walk in, we make sure the butt line is cleaned up. They walk in, the first thing any manager, you can always tell who the managers are at Waffle House. They will walk in, and the first thing they will do is go and check the restrooms. Make sure that the restrooms are stocked, that the restrooms are clean. So if you ever have a management meeting at a Waffle House, it's ridiculous. You have 11 people that go and check the restroom. And still, the last person that comes in is the senior vice president and finds something wrong with it. And then goes, did anybody check their restrooms? So they come around as they're coming by out of the restrooms. They're checking to make sure that all of the that all of the tables are cleaned and set up, that they are clean, that they are swept out, that you have a menu mat placed up, special side up, that the salt shaker is on the right and the pepper shaker is on the left, that the sugar canister is there, and that everything is filled up, and that you have each and every one of the 7 sauces are in the sauce rack. So you're checking that. Now usually you get pretty good at this because you're kind of doing this number. The first time you do it, it takes you an hour. You're like, oh, SVP's coming, I got to make sure that this is right. Then you get Charnice, will you please fill up your salt and pepper shakers for the love of God and all that's holy. Okay. You're walking around, you're checking to see if your associates are in uniform, in a complete uniform. Just as a FYI, they're not. The grill operator is not wearing his hat. And this was another thing that I learned from Dave Rickle. What do you tell the third shift grill operator that you've told them 100 times to put their hat on? You tell them to put their hat on 101 times, because are you really going to fire them over this and come in and cook third shift? You're not, so shut up. All right. You come around, you check the sales, because all the grill operators are paid for an increase on their sales. And then you do high fives and positive, and then the associates give you a list of 15 things that they're out of because you didn't do your freaking job at 2 o'clock in the afternoon earlier. It is always your fault. That is the number one thing that makes the associates mad, is they are not given, I'm sorry, I got fired up about that. They are not given the tools. You tell them that you want them to cook an increase, then you don't put enough food on the floor for them to cook an increase. You tell them that you want them to do extra cleaning, but in your Nazi-like zeal to keep costs down, you have only given them half a rag to towel to clean off, and then you get pissed at them because they didn't do it. I mean, when you were the problem in the first place. So this is what we have to teach the 23-year-olds and the 35-year-old lazy bums like myself. Then you have, as part of your manager's walkthrough, is your second part, which is a PRC, which is called a production ready checklist, to make sure that you have enough food and supplies on the floor so you're not having to run back and forth between the shift. And that's the unit manager walkthrough. That is the first and most basic system. There are systems for everything. We were talking about my favorite. We got a 15-minute video called Dirty Dishes, which is set to the opening music of I've Had the Time of My Life from Dirty Dancing, in which we spend 15 minutes, Joe Rogers Jr., with his master's degree from Harvard, telling about the Waffle House system to wash dishes. And it is the most fascinating thing that you have ever seen in your life. You have the 10 steps of customer service, which are designed to, from the time that you walk into the restaurant to the time that that food is in front of you, you consume, you pay, that should be 20 minutes. And from the time that you walk into, the time that food is placed in front of you, that should be 12 minutes. No, pardon me, 8 minutes. And the first 8 of those 10 steps of customer service are the we talk about making the first 8 great. It's so that we make sure that we get that. The first one is friendly greeting. Everybody gets a friendly greeting. You ever walk into a Waffle House? Hello? Hello? How you doing, hun? That was a great one. We got something from Waffle House Corporate that said we should do away with that they wanted all the associates to do away with all sweeties and huns and stuff like that. That didn't go very far. We're like, that was written by somebody that's never ran a Waffle House. So you got the 10 steps of customer service. You have the 5 service priorities. So you have the 10 steps of customer service tell you what 10 things that you're going to do for every customer from the time they walk in to the time they leave. And then you have the 5 service priorities come up. What happens when you have 4 things to do all at once? Which one do you do first? Number 1 is always friendly greeting. Number 2 is deliver hot food. So if they say pick up, I'm taking an order, you should say, hey hun, or hey hun, just depends on the orientation of the salesperson. And so I'll be back with you in a moment. Go and run the hot food, then come back and take the order. The third thing, and there used to be a really cool way, greet them, feed them, steal them, that's take money at the register. So we never want anybody waiting at the register. So get them out the door so we can put other ones in a friendly and exciting way. Get them out so we can put more people in. The fourth step is call an order. So if you got an order and you're waiting to take an order, you should always call the order first. Get your grill operators running. So if you're a really good customer at Waffle House, you can call your own orders. So, and just FYI, who likes to get the All-Star? Anybody got the All-Star? Chuck, you ever get the All-Star? How do you get your All-Star?
All at once?
Yeah. Hey, your eggs, how would you like those cooked?
Over easy.
Over easy. We have over light. Is that good? Yeah. That's going to be, the yolks are going to be barely, okay, over light. Do you want grits or hash browns with that?
Grits.
Grits? Terrific. Would you like those grits covered with cheese?
No.
You want bacon or sausage?
Bacon.
Bacon? And would you like a waffle or a biscuit and gravy? Waffle, you want pecans in that?
No.
Okay, waffle. Right. Pull one bacon. Mark, order over light, waffle. That's it. So order over light, everything comes with grits unless you wanted a hash brown. So let's get funky, okay? So let's say yes to everything. I'm going to order scrambled. You want that with cheese?
Yeah.
Order scrambled cheese. You want that with hash browns?
Yeah.
How would you like that? Do you want those hash browns scattered, smothered, and covered?
Yes.
Hey, we've got ham. Would you like that with ham in it as well?
Yeah.
Oh, right, terrific. You want a waffle? You want for just 99 cents more? Would you like to make that a double waffle?
Yeah.
And pecans are awesome. Okay, would you like some pecan waffles with that? Okay, and and do you want bacon or sausage?
Bacon.
Bacon, great. Would you like, if for just 50 cents more, you can get 2 slices more. You want to do that? For just 50 cents more, you can get 2 slices more. You want that? Yeah, large bacon. Okay, good deal. All right. 1 1/2 bacon. Drop 1 hash brown. Mark, order scrambled cheese plates, scattered, smothered, covered, diced. Out with the large bacon. Waffle on 2, like 1, make it pecan.
Can they get that?
Oh, they know it. Absolutely. So you will see them marking the plates. Do we got a plate? Somebody grab me a plate. Come on, grab me a plate. Get a plate. Somebody go back there and get a plate. Bring it up here. Golly, grab a couple of butters while you're at it. Need a couple of butters. They're on the end. They're by the bread. You're never going to make it at Waffle House. This is really slow. Oh my God. Y'all are in charge of supply chain. It's never getting there. What the? Okay. So you'll see on the board, on the sandwich board. So there'll be a sandwich board, so called because they slice sandwiches on it. They'll have plates lined up forever, and you'll see them with the plates. There'll be stuff on the plate. And the major thing, plate like this is a jelly pack. So you notice you always get a jelly pack, right? So even if you didn't order a damn jelly pack comes out with it, okay? So they're sitting there, and if they put it in down here at the bottom like this, that is 2 eggs scrambled. If it's in the middle like this, that's 2 eggs over medium. And if it's up here at the top like this, that's going to be 2 eggs, hell, I forget. Anyways. No. Cheese, you'd put the 2 pieces of cheese under the scramble. You put the 2 pieces of cheese under the scramble because that's what we're going to put on there. If it's going to be hash browns, we'll put a little hash brown on it, 1 or 2 little hash browns, and then 1 or 2 of the little ingredients that are going to go with it. So it's a scattered, smothered, covered. So scattered, smothered, covered, diced, capped, topped, gravy, chunked. Yep. So scattered, smothered, that just means it's smothered, it's out on the grill. Okay? Smothered, anybody? Onions, scattered, smothered, covered with cheese, diced, tomatoes, chunked, ham, peppered, jalapeno peppers, yeah, topped, chili, gravied. That wasn't hard to figure out. Now, if you want to really get grotesque, order it all the way, and they'll put chili and gravy on that. You should do that one time in your life, and don't ever do it again.